This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build your website quickly and efficiently.
The Tesla Model Y is one of the most popular vehicles in the world right now, with sales already surpassing the Model 3, which itself had an impressive production and delivery ramp. But even though it is extremely popular right now all over the world, in China, the US, and Europe, is it really worth the price? Well, good news for you today. My name is Chris, and today I'm here to share my experience with my Tesla Model Y after 1 year and over 20,000 miles of driving. So the first thing I want to touch on is the negatives of this car, because to be honest, overall the car has been fabulous over this 1 year and 20,000 miles. I really don't have many complaints, and the ones I do are pretty minor. So my number one negative, something I have actually been complaining about since day one, is the motor whine. And it is just a bit ear piercing. It's really annoying, and I noticed it pretty much immediately when I took delivery of my car, and I hoped that it either would break in or maybe service could take care of it. And I did take it into Tesla service, but like Tesla seems to say with a lot of things, and I've heard this from other people, I was basically told this noise, this sound, the volume was within spec, and it's expected from an electric motor, something you should hear. I will say I've kind of gotten used to it, although I still find it annoying sometimes, and you can even hear it in some of my driving videos. Overall, not a huge deal, but it is an annoyance I wanted to point out. I did have my right repeater die. That's the side camera that faces back, used for autopilot and full self-driving. Now, of course, this would have been covered under warranty, but we had a new beta update coming, and I make videos for beta, so I didn't want to wait for Tesla service to come because it was going to be, I think, like a month or 3 weeks or something before they could do it. So I bought one for $120 off eBay, and I replaced it myself. Now that ended up not being a great choice, because when we got the update for the side repeater cameras to show when the turn signal was on, I got one of the old repeaters that had the flash in the video. And so I had to then request Tesla to replace that one if I wanted it to work properly. I didn't have to do that, but I wanted it. And so that was another, I don't remember the price, but I'll put that on the screen. I spent that much getting that done. Whereas if I would have just waited and let service take care of it, of course it would have been covered under warranty. But that's really the only part of the car that I've had fail, which is pretty minor, but you cannot use any autopilot functionality or anything until it's fixed. Now, another really weird thing, my black trim. So all Teslas now come with black trim. My black trim looks pretty bad because I do take my car through car washes. Like I said, I use my cars. I don't have time. I have 2 kids. I have a full-time job. I make YouTube videos. I just don't have time to always hand wash my car at home, especially because I live on dirt roads. And after just a day or two of driving, my car can have a thick film of mud and dirt on the outside. So something like a waterless wash where you just use a bucket or two is not usually an option for me because there's just too much dirt on the car. So I don't always have time to pull out the pressure washer and, go through the whole thing. So I'll just drive through a car wash. I do touch car washes, sometimes touchless. And for some reason, now this is mentioned in the owner's manual, but for some reason, the pH or whatever of the washes that they use can discolor your trim, and it just looks pretty ugly. Now, for me personally, I don't care that much about this kind of stuff. I'm not really an aesthetic person. I just want the best, kind of most efficient thing, and if it looks cool, I guess that's fine, but it's not something I really care about. But I could see this being a really big deal for a lot of people, and so you have to be careful if you want to take it through car washes and not think about it. That's most likely gonna get discolored. So another really, really minor gripe here, when you're driving, if your windows are down and you go to roll them up, they automatically roll up, which is nice. A lot of cars have that. But if you hit even a very tiny small bump, the window will fail and kind of fall back down and force you to retry rolling it up. Now, this is related to a safety mechanism where the car will not crush anything in the door. It's just a little overly sensitive, and so you'll get that a lot when the car hits a bump. It'll just roll back down. You'll have to try to roll it up again. 2 more things. One, super minor. I noticed the door stops. Like, you know how you can open a door on the car and it'll have certain spots where it stops and it won't close? Those are super weak on this car. And I don't know if it's all Teslas or just this Model Y. I don't remember it exactly with my Model 3, but it might have been there too. If you're on even the slightest incline, the door just does not stay open. It always wants to swing back and close on you. So again, not a big deal, but in daily use, something you experience all the time, I figured it was worth mentioning. And then last thing, sometimes my hatchback will get stuck. You can open the hatch, of course, from the screen, or let's see if it'll happen right now. And yeah, so it opened fine this time, or of course you can open it from the button in the back, but sometimes I'll open it either from the app or from the screen or even the button in the back, and when I touch it, the hatch will make the noise, it'll open like unlock, but it won't actually make the whole movement of opening. It'll get stuck down there and I'll have to manually help it start. Now you could say this is because my car is always dirty and blah, 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 but our Equinox that we had before this, we had for 3 years, of course, driving it in the exact same conditions. The hatch on that never got stuck one time. Again, it's a pretty minor thing. It doesn't happen all the time. It just happens occasionally, but I figured I'd mention it because our other car that drove in the same conditions never had that happen. So now I want to move on to some of the positives, and using this YouTube video format is awesome for sharing this stuff, but sometimes people don't have time to watch videos, and that's where today's sponsor Squarespace comes in. You can use my link to get a discount from Squarespace and set up your custom website to share anything that you really want. Experiences with your car, you can use it to sell products. Squarespace has tons of options for everyone, so if you're interested in building something, building anything, sharing with the people around you, I highly recommend you check out Squarespace. Use my link down below to save on your Squarespace subscription and get your website up and running in no time. So let's talk about the costs, because one of the big things about electric vehicles is they're not supposed to require a lot of maintenance, and while the upfront cost may be more than a comparable gas car, in the long term, you're supposed to save money because you don't buy gas and you have less maintenance to do and no oil changes and things like that. So first up was my right repeater that I paid for twice, but that's kind of my fault, but we'll throw it in there anyway. This is what I paid for that. Now, electricity, we'll talk about this more in another section, but at the 1 year mark, I used around 6,000 kilowatt hours of electricity. And if I were to pay 6 cents per kilowatt hour, that would put me at about $360 that I spent on electricity driving that 20,000 miles. Now that is insanely cheap, and that is way cheaper than you're gonna find with gas. But actually, I probably spent significantly less than that because some of these miles were at superchargers, which I currently get free right now from referral miles, although that's not normal and that will go away next year for me. But I also have solar panels on my roof, and I do pretty much all of my charging at home. And if I charge during the day with the sun, that charging is 0 cents and it's completely free. Now, I don't have a good way to tell the difference between the charging I did that's fully covered by the sun or partially covered by the sun or partially covered just by the credits I build up by exporting solar energy during the day. So I way overestimated this expense, and a lot of these kilowatt hours were free, but I'm saying I paid for all of them just to kind of get a general idea. Now, let's say I didn't have solar and I just paid the normal rate at my house the whole year. I'll pop that figure up on the screen for you right now. This is how much it would have been with no solar, no free supercharging or anything like that. Now, my biggest expense in this 1 year was tires. Now, I do have aftermarket wheels. I use the EV01 Plus for my summer tires, and I use the stock Geminis for my winter tires. And I paid $937 for my set of winter tires. They are really good winter tires, a bit expensive, but you have to buy tires eventually anyway, and so that wear is getting spread out between the tires as I switch from summer to winter. So that's how much I paid for the tires, and then I paid $176 plus $88 for, I did a bunch of weird tire changing that was kind of unnecessary, but I did it. And so that's all I've paid for tires so far. Going forward, my tire changes will be free because they don't have to remount them anymore. But then if you consider, some car washes I did here and there and maybe some washer fluid, that's pretty much it. I haven't paid anything else for the car. Those are all my expenses over the 1 year, and again, 20,000 miles. And so expenses are looking really, really good. And then of course we have the cost of my car. This is how much my car cost. I got the long range, white interior, midnight silver metallic, which did cost at that time, but is now free. I got the free wheels and tires, and I did pay $10,000 for full self-driving because it was not a subscribable option at that time. Although I believe if I were to buy it today, I would subscribe. So that's my total cost for the first year. Now to interject, one thing I think I should touch on here is this car at the same spec that I have today is far more expensive than what I paid, to the point where I don't think I could actually afford the car I'm driving today if I were to buy it with all of the same options, especially full self-driving being $5,000 more than what I paid for full self-driving when I picked it up. So of course, value is relative to you, to your situation, but overall, I feel like the value I have gotten for this car and out of this car is amazing. But at the new prices, the more expensive prices, it can be a harder sell, almost to the point where I have stopped pushing people around me so much to Tesla. I still talk about EVs in general a lot and how great they can be, but it used to be like, oh yeah, Model 3, like it is great, it's affordable when you kind of factor in all the energy savings and gas savings and blah, blah, blah. But now I shy away from that a little more than I used to, and it's unfortunate because prices have just gone up so much. Now, this is not a Tesla exclusive thing. This is happening happen to pretty much all car brands and all products ever that we're buying today, but it's something I thought I should mention. So let's talk about the rated efficiency versus the efficiency I've actually got during this time. My efficiency at the 1 year mark was right at 299 watt hours per mile. Now that is more than the advertised energy usage, which means my 100% full charge is not taking me quite as far as Tesla would say, but that includes wintertime, which we know is less efficient, and it includes those winter tires for about half the time I talked about. And winter tires are a lot more grippy and they use a lot more energy than a traditional tire. So overall, I'm actually pretty happy with the efficiency. And in ideal conditions, traveling 50 to 55 miles per hour in normal, maybe 70-ish degrees, not too windy, I will actually spend less energy than Tesla quotes in their efficiency numbers. So you can actually beat the estimated range in regular driving a lot of the time, depending on the way you drive. And then my total energy in the first year was about 6,000 kilowatt hours, which we talked about in the expenses. Now, as far as the health of my battery, this is always kind of a tricky subject. Without seeing a lot of the background information that Tesla has, there's not a great way to actually see the health of your battery and how much capacity is left versus fully charging it and then fully killing it and fully charging it again to actually look at how many kilowatt hours you use, and that will show you your usable capacity. But my rated range, even after this 1 year, is showing exactly the same as what I was getting when the car was new. So my car is showing that I will get 325 miles of range on a 100% charge. That's something I really concerned myself with because you do have your battery warranty. There's not much you can do about it anyway, unless it goes below the warranty number, which is less than 70% capacity. And at that point, Tesla will do something for you. And I don't know, I don't think these numbers are all that relevant unless, again, you get a lot of that background data. So it's cool to see that number, and I'm happy to see it when I charge up and see that it's still looking the same as it did on day one. But yeah, I don't think anyone should spend too much time really thinking about that number. Now, driving this car has been a blast. It is so quiet. It is so smooth. Everything about it is so nice. Now, we do have a Model X as well, a refreshed Model X, and I will say the suspension in that is a lot nicer, but had I not experienced that, I still would have loved this one. Now, on the dirt roads, this one is kind of bumpy and kind of stiff, but it's not bad. And the volume level in this car is so nice. The Model 3 was extremely loud, especially at highway speeds. Oh man, it was kind of annoying actually. The Model Y is very quiet. Now, there's still road noise, there's still wind noise and all those things, but it's much more muted compared to my Model 3. Now, I think a lot of these things are really subjective, and it depends on your prior experiences, how much you care about this stuff, and kind of what you're sensitive to. But for me, this was a huge step up from the older 2018 Model 3 and is a lot more enjoyable than that car was in terms of road noise. Now, I did have one rattle that I couldn't find for a while, and it turns out it was actually the passenger seat belt was rattling on the side of the car. So just this piece of the seat belt was kind of touching the side of the car. And so what I'll do is I'll just kind of place it here sometimes, and then it won't rattle. It actually doesn't happen very much. It usually only happens on the dirt roads. I could put some fabric or something there, but it actually hasn't been enough of an annoyance for me to do anything about it. One pedal driving is awesome. If you haven't experienced an electric car, you're not used to it yet, just using the one pedal is awesome. I rarely use the brake. Now, my service experience with the car has been excellent, mostly because the car has been in such great condition. I haven't really needed service. So I talked about the motor whine in the beginning, which I got checked out. At the same time, I had them put some PPF on the rear door panels. That is something that is supposed to come installed from the factory. I'm not sure if it's for every Model Y or just North America and, you know, Canada and parts of northern US and stuff like that. But my car didn't have it initially on delivery, so I took it into service to have that installed. And at the same time, I had them check out the motor whine, which is when they told me, you know, that it's normal or whatever. And besides that, I have not really needed any service on the Model Y. Now, I do have one other little issue where for whatever reason, I have trouble with my internet connectivity, and my maps will say, you know, functioning without internet or whatever. And it still works, I'll still get navigation, but sometimes the traffic data isn't quite up to date. And I talked to service about that through the app, and they did some diagnosis. They talked with me for over a week back and forth about what's going on, and they basically came to the conclusion that I'm in bad cellular areas. Now, that's not true. I don't believe them because we have two Teslas, and in the exact same location, our Model X will not have that message, and the Model Y will. In addition to that, Teslas use AT&T for their internet, and I have AT&T on my phone, so I can just check the connection on my phone and all of that. So, of course, maybe the car's connection isn't as good or something, but I've been around other Teslas that are not having that issue at the exact same time mine is. So it's not location-based. I am going to bug them some more about that. But what I'm thankful for in that experience, although they did not correct my issue, is I didn't have to waste time going into the service center to hear that message. I was able to at least just chat with them on my phone and not, waste those hours doing that. The charging experience overall has been so nice for me. So I basically just get home and I plug it in every day. I have a wall connector that's outside. We park our Model X in the garage and we park the Model Y outside. And I don't know, it's just, you don't even think about it. It takes you 1 second to plug in versus stopping at a gas station once or twice a week, which is what I used to do. And so overall, like on a yearly basis, road trips included, I definitely am saving time charging versus getting gas. So I spend less time fueling up my electric car than I ever did fueling up my gas car. Now, of course, that has to do with your personal usage and how you charge it and everything, and how much you were maybe driving your gas car, how much you were filling it up. But yeah, so I spend less time charging my car because I just plug it in and I'm done. That's it. It does the rest kind of overnight. I've never come even close to running out of charge. I have been driving electric since 2019, and I have gotten very low. I've rolled into a supercharger with, 10 miles or so left of range in my Model 3. But it wasn't something I was worried I wasn't going to make it. It was planned that way. I did that on purpose. Even the very tiniest amount of planning ahead will prevent any kind of problems you'll have with running out of juice or whatever. I've actually ran out of gas in my gas cars, I think 2 times in my life, and I've never run out of electricity in my electric cars, so it's been less of a problem here. Now, Autopilot and full self-driving, I absolutely love. I have a million videos about that, so if you want more details, go watch those. But I will say overall, Autopilot, just base Autopilot, the free included version of Autopilot with all Teslas, is such a stress reduction. Now, before I forget, I do want to mention some people do experience phantom braking where the car slows, sometimes dramatically when it doesn't need to, but personally it's not something I normally experience. When I'm using Autopilot, I just keep my foot on the accelerator at all times unless we're slowing down. Then I'll put my foot on the brake in case the car's not going to slow down in time or not slow down enough. But most of my driving, foot's on the accelerator. If I get any of those slowdowns that are unnecessary, I simply gently tap the accelerator to override that. But overall, I pretty much never have any hard braking that isn't supposed to be happening. And the experience is just amazing, especially for someone like me that drives 70 plus miles a day, a lot of that on highways. It's just, the stress melts away. I don't go fast anymore because I don't care to pass everybody. I'm like, I'm just chilling in the right lane, let my car do the driving. I'm just paying attention, looking around, making sure everything's going well. And then the full self-driving features are also very nice, the public-facing ones that you get with the car. They work very well on the highway. And then full self-driving beta, go watch some of those videos. It's quite the experience. It's getting really good, but it's still not for the faint of heart, in my opinion. And one last thing I want to touch on before we wrap up is storage. There is so much room in this car, especially when I compare it to my Model 3. Now, the trunk space is really big, although the back of the Y does slope pretty aggressively. So if you have something tall, it will not fit all the way in the back. You have to kind of push it up or even fold the seats down, which they fold down very easily. There are buttons in the trunk, so you don't have to walk around to fold them down, although they are spring-loaded, so you do have to walk back up to the back seats to push them back up. You can't push the button and have them electronically come back up. But with the seats folded down, this is the 5-seater, not the 7-seater, you have so much room for everything. I mean, it's never been a problem. Even in our Model 3, to be honest, it had a lot of room, and if you folded the seats down, there was plenty of room there, but the opening for the trunk on the Model 3 just felt tiny. It felt absolutely tiny. And so even if you maybe had room in the car, it could be hard to get things in and out of the car, even though there was room for those things. With the Model Y, just like any hatchback, the opening back there is so massive, you can just throw anything in. It's really nice for when I do my tire changes, like doing my winter tires. So easy to just put all the tires in there, go to the tire shop. They have plenty of room to put the other tires back in. So the storage, the space has been awesome. The frunk I do not use almost ever. I do have my patrons in there. Thank you to you guys. You're still in the front with me. But as far as storage and daily use, I don't use it that much just because it's not electronic like the trunk is, and it's just less convenient to use. But for additional storage, it's there if you need it. So overall, my thoughts and conclusions on the Model Y. I absolutely love this car. When I got my Model 3, I had done reviews and said it was the best car I ever owned. Well, not anymore. The Model Y is the best car I've ever owned. And I do own the Model X. Wait for that review, and maybe we'll talk about why it's not the best car I've ever owned. But this one, just the number one for a car, reliability. You need it to get you A to B. That's why you own it. And I have just never even come close to having a problem with this car. It runs and works so well. It's so smooth. Maintenance costs are so low. It handles my bumpy dirt roads daily like a champ. Nothing is falling apart or anything. And again, at this point in ownership, you really shouldn't expect it. But you never know. Sometimes those things happen. So I am so happy to report that overall, I highly, highly, highly recommend this car. If it's within your budget, I think you should definitely go for it, and you will be extremely happy. If you do have any issues, Tesla has mobile service that can come out and help you so you can not waste time with service if you need it. But hopefully your experience would be like mine, and you just really won't need any service. If you have any questions about Model Y or Tesla ownership, please leave those down below in the comments. I'd love to help you out and answer those for you. Hope you enjoyed this one, and you will see me in the next video.